All right, kia ora everyone, and those who end up watching this, welcome to another interview. We're bloody lucky to have the one and only Craig Ice McGrath all the way in Melbourne. Ice, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, JT. How are you?
Yes, yeah, very good. We're going to dive straight into this because I find these can go on quite long, but we're going to try and keep it to 30 minutes. So we want all the gold from your wise kaumātua head.
Yeah, it's very grey anyway, mate. It's very grey.
Awesome. Hey, so let's get straight into, when did you start thinking about, retiring from footy? You know, you played here in Auckland, New Zealand, had a couple of run-ons for the Blues and the ITM side, then moved overseas. When did the first thought about finishing up this illustrious career begin for you?
I think it was just after I had our first child. I had another year to run in my contract up in Italy, and it was like, what are we going to do after this? And they sort of wanted to keep us on, but I was sort of like, it was only a 1 year thing. So that sort of led to a whole range of options, and one come up in Ireland as a player coach. And I was still playing okay rugby, so I thought, well, this might be a good avenue for me to move into coaching and also still play, and because I still love the game, and I still thought I had something to offer on the field. And I reckon there's nothing better than playing rugby on a Saturday and then having a few beers with some boys afterwards. I think just, it's one of the good parts of the game, you know. But I just thought I'll get into the coaching side of it, and basically the transition was, once I got there, it was a little bit difficult because I've gone away. I went from sort of professional, playing in front of a few thousand people, to playing in front of 50 with 2 dogs and a couple of cows looking in, and it was pretty hard initially, but then I just sort of, I got over myself pretty much, really, and I just really started to love the coaching and love watching players become better players, better people, and I just really enjoyed my whole time there in Ireland, just watching them. They were just like sponges. They were just absorbing the information, and basically in those first 2 years, I just fell in love with the game, fell in love with coaching and helping people. So it was great.
Let's just touch on that bit. That moving from Italy to Ireland, where you just had 2 cows and a couple of dogs, watching. Yeah. For me, I took a few years to really get used to not playing. So how were you feeling? Take us back to that first day you wake up and you're in Ireland and you're trotting off to training, and no doubt it's cold. And, that Saturday game where there's not many people there. What were your feelings and thoughts during that initial couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months maybe?
Yeah, I reckon it was more because we were training during the day. It was more going back to training at night again, and it just took me, really, once I got over myself, I really started to enjoy it, because it took me back to my days when me and yourself were playing at Waitemata, and it was just guys just playing for the love of the game, and a lot of them sacrificed a lot to go out and train on a Tuesday and Thursday night in the wet, in the cold, and then playing on Saturday. And it's a little bit different in Ireland because we travelled around a lot. Like a local game wasn't just from Waitemata to Ponsonby into Western Springs, from West Auckland to Western Springs, or the furthest ever you went was probably to Pakuranga, but it was sort of a good hour and a half trip to get to some games in Dublin. So I enjoyed that. I just enjoyed it all. And but the transition was more a case of myself, just getting over myself. I think, like, once you got out there and you started playing rugby, it was just rugby. It was just 15 v 15.
So what do you mean? Yeah. So what do you mean, like, get over yourself? Was it the expectations that you had from the past, that, hey, was it just getting over the fact that you'd moved on from that time and space in your career?
I think it was that. I think it was, exactly that. Getting over, right, you're playing in front of X amount of people, and now you're going to playing in front of 50 people, and it shouldn't have. in my head, I was like, I feel like a little bit disappointed. And then I just sort of sat down one day and I just sort of said to myself, it's not about how many people are at the game. It's about the enjoyment I still get out of it. And I still really, really got a lot of enjoyment out of playing the game. And in a funny way, I actually got a lot more enjoyment out of just playing with a bunch of guys who just wanted to roll their sleeves up. And there was no money involved. There was no ego involved. It was just them playing with some mates. And it just really took me back to playing club rugby back home in New Zealand. And, I just found the professional era at that point in time where I'd come from there was a lot of people just ego-driven. It was all about money. It wasn't about the love of the game. And I guess that's professional sport. That's where it's gone a little bit. But I just really enjoyed going back to that grassroots element once I got over myself. And Kirsty definitely helped me with that. Like, we had a few conversations, and going back to grassroots was great for me. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, yeah, well, let's touch on that. Your lovely other half, and those players and athletes who go through this transition. Some of them aren't alone. They've got kids, which you had kids as well. So, what were some things you guys did as a couple to help with this transition and, like you say, get over your mindset?
We had another baby, so we were quite lucky. Justin was born in Italy, and then Emma was born in Ireland. I was lucky. I was getting paid to full-time coach at the club, so I was at the club all day, most nights and all weekend. So I was lucky in that sense. But then when I moved here to Melbourne, we bought our own business. So Justin Wilson, ex-New Zealand Sevens player and a good friend of mine, we decided to go 50-50 in the business, and we bought a personal a gym, running boot camps and things like that. And we still got that now. We've had that for 3.5 years, and Kirsty works there. She does all the accounts, and she keeps an eye on the money.
Good wives do.
And obviously Juddy and myself and Kirsty, we run classes. So that's been a really nice transition, and it's quite funny. We sort of, for me and Juddy anyway, we sort of run it like a rugby training, and general public, they love it. They just love. Juddy had some boys doing some tackling and stuff, and them down and ups in the gym, which brought back some horrible memories, but so that's been really, really good for us. It's been a nice little stepping stone.
Good.
Me and Kirsty.
Hey, well, sorry to interrupt there. In terms of, like your darling, who else was some key people that played a role for you in that transition phase? Because here, they've got PDMs and things, but when you're over there, that's a totally different environment, isn't it? So who did you get to help you in that transition, if anyone else?
No one really, because like you say, we had no one. I went from Italy, professional. I went from home in New Zealand, playing at ITM Cup and stuff, and then over to Italy. And then once we left Italy, went back to Ireland, there was no one. It was just me and her, and we just had to go it alone, and we didn't even have. We had no family or anything, obviously, over there, and it was not rough. It was just a tough period, and you just batten down the hatches and you just get on with it. And we had some really good conversations, me and Kirsten, about it all. And I was fortunate enough that she's not bad, and keep her on for a little bit longer, I reckon.
You are batting above your weight there, by the way. But anyway.
And the cricket analogy, I'm halfway down the crease, mate.
Well, it is Mental Health Awareness Week here in New Zealand, I think around the world, actually. But I've had my fair share of pretty tough conversations or rough times with my darling during my own transition, not from rugby, but also from my previous job. So, what were some of the focus points on those conversations? Just give those listeners, when they come and watch, what could they be talking about to help get through this?
Oh, I guess I think a lot of it was financial, because you're obviously worrying about, we had 2 young kids, and you worry about where the next meal's coming from and things like that. And so and that's just the nature of our sport, or the transition, like when you're going from contract to contract, and it's hard. But especially back then, it was pretty tough. We were earning good money, and then the next minute we weren't earning. We're earning enough, but it wasn't. We weren't able to. We definitely weren't living an extravagant lifestyle, and we just made it work. To be honest, between the two of us, and it's. I'm really thankful for that. But there's the side of things, and then there's just the ego side of it, like where you go from playing in front of 10,000 people or whatever it was in Italy to playing in front of 50 people, and you in Italy, you're in professional rugby, you're in the papers and it's all that. But when you went to Ireland, there wasn't TV, there wasn't any of that sort of carry on. So it was more about just me dealing with it myself, the ego going like, and that's what I said before. It didn't become about myself. It became about me still loving the game, me helping other people love the game, and me watching people. I got a lot of satisfaction out of their performance rather than my own.
And so was that quite immediate for you? Like, did you rock up to the club and go, shit, yeah, this feels like the old club days at Wider? And did you get that connection straight away, or did that take a little bit?
It took a bit, but then it definitely happened. It definitely happened for me. It was like, well, this is like, these boys are just like the boys that I played with at Waitemata, and mate, I loved every minute playing for Waitemata, and because it was just a bunch of boys just going out and working hard for each other, and these boys were the same in Ireland. And when I come here in Harlequins as well, it was exactly the same here in Melbourne. When I did the 2 years here, it was exactly the same. It was just really refreshing, I guess, from my experiences at professional rugby, and just going back to grassroots. I just loved it. It's always been my favourite part. But I just got over myself pretty quickly. Get to.
Yeah. Look, well, I just want to summarise that bit. So, I mean, getting over yourself sounds like it's those expectations of, hey, we've gone from this position where people watching, and also financially, to now this position over here. And really nutting that out with your other half and saying, right, how are we going to make this work financially for our whānau, and then recognising what are some of the good points, and some of the good points we're connecting back with that grassroots love of the game space. So would you encourage that similar process for any other athletes out there wanting to transition into coaching themselves? What were the pros and cons of your path?
Without wanting to sound horrible, I think too many professional players now come out of the game and they go straight into coaching without actually coaching at that grassroots level. I think it's a little bit like players now. They get fast tracked. I think I think you learn your trade a lot. It's like an apprenticeship really, and it's helped me in good stead. And I would really encourage coach guys coming out of the game to go and coach a couple of years at professional rugby, and that's the place where
at club rugby.
Yeah, you can try things. You can try different things because it's not that high pressure environment where if you don't win a game, you might lose your job. You know what I mean? I think I know Tana spoke about that. When he got offered the Blues job initially, he didn't want to do it because he felt he wasn't ready, because he wanted to stay at counties, and he was trying things that he knew would work for him later on. Blues job, and I think that's just massive. I just think coaches are going from professional rugby players to professional coaches, and some guys it works for, but I just think an apprenticeship and doing a hard graft and a bit of hard work and it makes you appreciate that professional environment a little bit more too as well. So.
Yeah, right. Hey, Ice, I'll get you to move forward a bit because I'm cutting your chin off. Yeah, there, that's better. Just with the line that I've got, that's the bugger. So what would your top three key skills that you learned while you were coaching at that community space initially? What were the top three skills you would say are valuable in helping the way you coach right now?
Top three. Keep it simple. I think I know from my own experience going into Super Rugby, coaching Super Rugby, I thought I had to come up with the flashiest drill in the world. But you don't have to, because the game doesn't change just because it goes up a level. I think you've got to keep it simple. So I learned that because I had to keep it simple because of obviously the level of player that we had. Communication, like how you deal with players and how, because mate, I had guys who were farmers to guys who were working as accountants to guys who were lawyers to guys who were pouring pints on a Saturday night, students. So just learning different forms of communication for different individuals. I just think those two have held me in reasonable stead at the moment. Like, I think keep it simple, and just it really teaches you to work hard on different forms of communication, because at the moment now you're getting a lot of those young guys come in a professional environment. They're coming straight out of school, and they're not, they're a little bit roboty, I suppose, some of them. But look, that's the two big things for me.
Wicked. And besides actually going out there and coaching and, getting in that club environment, were there any other ways you learnt those skills or went to seek development in those skills that other athletes could go and do themselves as well?
Yeah, look, I did a project management course, which taught me how, just kept me well organised. And that helped me with designating jobs and helping with, because as a first-time coach, you go out and you just want to do everything, and I just thought that was really massive for me. Also, obviously, the normal coaching courses that teach you. Like I went to a lot of coaching courses in Ireland, and it wasn't more of a case of sometimes as long as I took away one or two really key things for me that were going to be good for me and good for the team, that was important to me. But also it just reconfirmed that I was on the right track. What I was doing was right. Well, it wasn't right, but I was on the right track, and I was doing the things that these people say you should do as a coach. So that was pleasing.
Yeah, and I found that's just as powerful. When I was running those workshops at New Zealand Rugby, players would come in, or any other coach would come in, and it's like you say, it's great to always get one or two things out of that session. But if you even get one or two things that reinforce, hey, what you're doing is great, that's powerful, eh?
Oh yeah. It just it was really, really good for me, especially as a first-year coach, to go to a couple of courses with some real people coaching at a high level in Ireland, and they were talking, and I was going, well, actually, we're doing that, and so that was pleasing for me.
Wicked. And your move from Ireland to Australia, then, that was still at community level?
Yeah. So we just got, we had 5 years there in Ireland, and it was sort of like kids were getting a bit older, and we decided, we'll move home. And we both weren't really ready to move back to New Zealand at that point. So a gig come up here in Melbourne with Harlequins Rugby Club, and, they did the big sale. You could come here and you can move into the Melbourne Rebels and all that. And I come here with no expectation other than to coach at that level and go, and see what happens and start a new life for ourselves. And so come into Melbourne and coached 2 years with Harlequins. First year as assistant, second year as head coach, and lucky enough to win the 2 premierships. And in the meantime, we set up the gym, and everything's been going really, really well for us. And then obviously I moved into the Melbourne Rising for 14, and then I was lucky enough to get a gig for the last 3 years now with the super team here in Melbourne, which is first 2 years are really good. We did some really good things this year.
Yeah.
So a difficult year for us, but like Kirsty says to me, she goes, I said to her, it'd be nice to win a game, and she just said, well, think about all the other games you used to win. I was like, this is just your year where you're not winning a few. And I was like, yeah, I suppose so. So there she is again telling me what to do.
They're good at keeping us honest, aren't they?
Oh yeah, mate, 100%. She, between her and my brothers and my dad and my mum, I've never really been able to get too far ahead of myself.
Hey, well, it is really an awesome journey when you look at it from, coaching and playing in Ireland at club level to where you are now. So just get some more insight into when you land in Melbourne. Like you said, you had no expectations on what might happen next, but you obviously go there to do your best. What were some key learning points or learning events that you got out of that first couple of years at Harlequins that led you on to where you are now?
Jeepers. I learned that I wasn't a forklift driver. So
right.
I first got here and the club got me a job, and I ended up working in a factory. And mate, it was like, again, it was just made me reconfirm how lucky I had been, and it made me even more determined to go, right, well, I'm going to make more of what I'm doing and more of my time here in Melbourne. And that's what made us go to the gym and open up the gym and start with the gym. And then it made me really even more determined to really try and be more successful as a coach, because I fell in love with it, and I just wanted to be be the best as I could be, and worked really hard at that. And then got in the Rising, and mate, I was lucky. I got recommended by some really not good people who reckoned me as a community coach from the club to go and coach with the Super Rugby coaches and coach the Rising team. And then
so just for those that don't know, Ice, the Rising team that's like the new provincial competition.
Yeah. So it's Australians' version of ITM Cup, and so I started that in 2014, and I just got in with some really good coaches there. Sean Hedger was one, and just learned a lot of him. And he pushed me towards the CEO at the Rebels and the head coach at the Rebels, Tony McGann. And I was lucky enough, Tony took a gamble, and I went in there as a skills coach, and initially, and then ended up as a part-time basis. And then, sort of 3 months in, I become full-time, and then after that, everything sort of yeah. So,
well, let's just highlight a key event that I'm picking up from you, that forklift driving experience, because I've had a similar experience where, again, that feeling of you're kind of at the top of the mountain and you come into a new environment, and then it's not so great, or it's not as great as before. And to me, you've either got two options when you get to that point. You can either roll over, or, like you talked about, is step up your game, and it made you more ambitious to go into your own business, and then coaching, be really good as a coach. That really drove you, that incident or that event?
Yeah, I come home. I guess I broke down a little bit, to be honest. I come home and I just said to Kirst, I'm way better than just being a forklift driver. And that's no disrespect to the forklift drivers out there. It was just more of a case as like you said, I'd come from coaching, getting paid to coach, to not getting paid, to working full time, and it was just a real, just an eye-opening experience. And that was the sort of the day that I decided, like, I'm going to make a go of this. And mate, I was lucky. I rang Justin Wilson and had a good chat to him about it as well, and he agreed, and he goes, mate, why don't we do something together? And and we just I just probably the next week, I think, I went in and I said to the guy at the factory, who was a guy from Harlequins, and he's a great guy, and I just said, mate, I'm just going to give this other stuff a crack. And he goes, mate, I always thought you were way too good to be sitting here driving this forklift. And I said, I appreciate that. And I just went from there, really, and a few tears and shit like that. But, mate, you just, like you say, I had two options, go down one path or go down the other. And I'm thankful I had good support around me with Kirsten. I just went and really got stuck in and got into the gym, and then got into the rugby kicked on.
Yeah. Mate, I mean, I don't want to dwell on that part, but I really do think it's an experience a lot of athletes go through, and I've gone through that myself this year. And you ask those pretty deep questions around, what am I going to do now? And, you talk to your other half about it, and they're always supportive. So I'm going to get you to touch a bit more on, what were you actually feeling? But I picked up there that calling Justin was a really key thing to do as well.
Yeah. Like Kirsty had gone to see Juddy about a job at the gym he was working at that time, and then some stuff happened with Kirsty and her mum and dad's business. So Kirsty ended up taking a job helping her mum and dad, and I spoke to Juddy from that, and then it was just like, Juddy just said, look, why don't we give this a crack? We're both like-minded people. We've got a bit
both successful people too. Successful.
Yeah. Like we both had good careers rugby-wise, and we were both thankful that we had that. So we just thought, we're nice guys. We'll give this a crack, and we've got the gym still going now, and it continues to grow. And but you're just talking to Juddy and knowing Juddy was probably not going through the same, or he'd been through that same process a little bit as well, I think, because he was in Ireland just before I was, and then he come back here to Melbourne, so he knew all about what I was probably going through. We didn't have a discussion about what I was going through, but we did discuss let's give this a crack, and I talked about it, the warehouse job that I had, and I just felt like what was better than that, and he agreed, and we just gave it a crack.
Wicked. And that having a crack is a bit harder than just saying the word "have a crack," eh?
Oh yeah, look, it's There's a lot more involved than just having. Yeah, exactly. There's all sorts of bits and pieces that go into that, and mate, we learnt so much too as new business owners about how you go about that process and how starting up, taking over. We took over an existing business, and then changes of leases and bonds and all sorts of stuff. It was massive learning experience for the two of us, and even now we still learning stuff as we go from that side of things. Thankfully, but thankfully now it's running well, and at the moment, unfortunately, I can't put much time into it at the moment because of rugby, but Kirsten and Juddy are definitely working hard there, and hopefully in the near future might be able to put a little bit more time in there. Wicked.
So what would your, again, top 3 tips or tips for athletes, and rugby guys and girls who come out of their career, they find themselves in a situation like you have, like I have experienced, to then have a crack at a business venture as an example? What would your top 3 tips be for them to give them the best chance at succeeding?
Back yourself. Believe that what you're doing is the right thing, and believe that everything. Because I don't think people underestimate all the good things that rugby teaches you. You can go out and play rugby for 80 minutes, and then sit in the change room, have a beer, or go and sit in an ice bath and then get a massage or whatever. It's what the process of getting to playing the game on the weekend teaches you a lot of good habits, work ethic, teaches you life skills. And I think even though you might be transitioning into something different, believe in all the things that you've learned through rugby or you've learned in your life, and believe in yourself. I think that's the biggest one. And don't. I know you're reading that book, but don't limit yourself. Don't think that you're not good enough to do what you want to do. And mate, I have that self-doubt a little bit every now and then, and as most people probably do. And I just think if you believe in yourself, that's half the battle.
Mate. Look, that's so spot on, and I believe the same. What you've just said is there's so much that athletes know. There's so much they already do, but because it's recognised in this one space of society, some struggle, and I know I struggled to see how they could do it on this side of society.
I agree, and I think a lot of it too You can't just say, he was a rugby player, that's all he knows. He knows a lot of whole lot of other stuff, or he or she knows a lot more stuff than just being a rugby player. It's funny that the game has taught me so much about business stuff that I think is just common sense. But it's only common because that's what I've done all my life. To other people it might not be, but look, I'm fortunate, and like every rugby player has played at a high level, or who's just played the game at a grassroots level. We're fortunate to be playing that game, and it does teach us so many things, so many life skills. And maybe the other one, it does give you a network too. It gives you a real big network, and don't be afraid. If I can say anything, don't be afraid to use the network. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and talk to people, and because that will help you, because that's the beauty of the rugby fraternity, I suppose.
It is. And, mate, you've nailed a lot on the head there. And what I'm hearing, I think we need to try and help players do right now is really have them recognise that these skills, because like you say, are common sense to us, are not common sense to others outside of the industry. And they'll be totally amazed when they walk into that space and start sharing this stuff and how much of an impact it will have.
Yeah, 100%. Like the other one is like the common sense stuff, but it's the work ethic. The guy that goes to rugby on a Tuesday and Thursday night sacrifices so much. It's the same with the professional player. He sacrifices so much. As me as a professional, as a coach, luckily professionally, I've sacrificed a lot of stuff, time and stuff like that. But it's the work ethic that you've learnt, and that work ethic will just go into business as well. And I just think it is what it is. And if I was employing somebody, and he played rugby, I'd definitely employ him before I took someone. That sounds terrible, but that's what I would do. But purely because I know that guy's come from a background, or she's come from a background where she's had to work really, really hard to be successful or get the best out of their life.
That's great. Hey, we've got about 7-10 minutes left, and just want to get again your feedback or input really around making that jump from a community coach to a professional coach. You talked about being recommended to the Rebels by another person, and it was a part-time gig and then became a full-time gig. What are some of the considerations people will have to make, athletes will have to make when they're making that transition?
My biggest one was that communication. I knew what I wanted somebody to do or something, or I could see what he should be doing, and then it was that communication to that player to make sure that he understood what I was trying to get from him. But the biggest one I found is things simple is better than complication, because they're the same as anybody else. If you give them too many things to try and do or whatever, be it a drill, be it a game-related stuff, I think keeping things simple for them will make it easier. Don't think that if you're going into professional coaching that you have to make it any harder than it needs to be, because it's only a simple game. And the other one is for me, is something I like. As coaches, you always focus on the negative, and it's something that once I moved into that coaching hemisphere, I suppose you'd call it, whatever it is, you naturally, the first year or first 2 years, I focused on the negative all the time. Now I think you've got to think about what's the strength of a player or the strength of your team and make that stronger. I think too many coaches focus. Excuse me. Too many coaches focus on what their team's not great at and put all their energy in that, rather than think, well, what are we good at? Let's make that a massive weapon and make that unstoppable and make ourselves so good at that part of the game that teams can't hurt us. Like, for example, defence, you've got a good defensive team. Go think about how can I make now. We're a good defensive team, but so what am I going to focus on? So, because if you're only good at attack, then you spend all your time on attack because you just want to focus on that rather than think about, right, we're a good defensive team. I'm going to spend 70% of my time on defence, and I'm going to focus the other 30% or the other 10%, however you divide it up, on turnover attack because we're going to be that great at the defensive side. We're going to turn over ball, and we'll just worry about that. And then I just found too many coaches focus on the negative rather than the positive stuff that goes on in the game.
Wicked. No, I definitely see that in play. Not only myself with parenting.
Stop touching that.
Yeah, but I see that in the coaching industry too. Hey, just to finish off with, because I mean those 2 points you talked about, they're not your day-to-day stuff that we would think of. Like a lot of us would go into technical, tactical, and that's important. But as players, we come with a bit of an understanding around that stuff. Would that be fair? And it's these other, there's other words, soft skills and tangible skills that probably need a bit more refining. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't really talk about Australian rugby right now.
And just to finish off with, going back to your business approach and stepping in, I think one thing that stood out when I've talked to others is some haven't gone into something they totally don't know. So you guys went into fitness industry. You were a PT yourself, weren't you, at one stage?
Yeah, one stage, yep.
And so is that something you recommend, is to have, encourage athletes to go into something that they connect with, they're passionate about, they know about, or it's okay to actually go into something totally out of their field?
Oh, look, each their own. I don't think you can pigeonhole everybody. I think I was passionate about trying to keep fit and all that sort of carry on through rugby, so it was an easy pathway for me, and it is an easy pathway as a rugby player to go into that fitness industry. But I think also look at the excitement that you might get out of going something completely left field and learning and being just in your not in your comfort zone, because going into PT was a comfort zone for me. I train in just like rugby players, pretty much, some of them. Look, don't pigeonhole yourself. It's an easy pathway. Don't pigeonhole yourself.
Wicked. Hey, Ice, brother, thanks so much for sharing, man. There's some gold in there, and really it just helped highlight that we are going to have some tough times in that transition process, but back yourselves as athletes with the skills, the knowledge, the experience that you've had. We've all had that bad game and we've bounced back. Yeah,
mate, exactly. That's it.
And so the key bit is talk, get some help, I really love how you picked up the phone and spoke to Justin Wilson, another player I think that's really valuable. They know what you're going through, and then you can do something together maybe.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
Work it. Hey, Ice, I'm going to end this broadcast, but hang on for 2 minutes afterwards, so don't log off. But thanks for your time. All the best with Melbourne Rising. You got a couple of weeks left in the comp?
Yeah, a couple of weeks left, and see what happens post that. So see how we go.
Wicked. Well, there might be a few jobs coming up in New Zealand over the next couple of years, so make sure you look out for those, if you want to get back to sunny Auckland.
There's only sunshine out in Auckland as in West Auckland, mate. You know that. Right.
Damn right. All right. Right, to all the watchers and listeners, JT and Ice out. Hey, bro.